Okay, so this is the new level that tracks your variables as you go across from one level to the other. So my PC and Mac versions are a bit different. My Mac version wouldn't load all of the assets we had from our class, so I just built up something quickly to show an example. Um, so it doesn't look identical, and there's a couple differences. So just to be aware, kind of set up the first person a little bit differently, as you can see. Um, didn't comment everything, but I have a begin play that's adding the widget. I'm using variables, promoting variables. Hopefully these are making more sense to you right now. So I can call to this widget in other places in the first person character, and then also calling to the game mode, so I can call to the game mode at different parts of the first person character. I kind of set this up different, and you might be interested in trying this one out. I kind of like this actually. So just have my health separate. It's really simple. It's just calling to the game mode and just adding or subtracting if there's any damage. Pretty straightforward. Um, a lot of the stuff's actually happening on the game mode. But then I have to call back if I from the game mode. If my character dies, then it's going to run this death event, and basically I'm just destroying the components, everything that's in the character itself. So it destroys everything. It removes the original HUD, which has the health bar and the keys, and then it constructs a new one, which is called game over, which just as a word game over, adds it to the viewport for 4 seconds, and then it loads it back open to the first person example map. And then just made a quick key counter because I didn't want to throw keys out or make make a pickup for it. So I just set it up so if I press the key K, it's going to call to the key counter and it's going to add a key. Again, I'm using the variables to call to different things. There's a variable to the HUD. There's a variable to the first person game mode. Um, so calling to those in different places so I don't have to keep dragging all this stuff out everywhere. I just have it once and it happens. Looking at the game mode really quickly. There's the run death. Let's not look at that back part yet. We'll talk about that in a moment. So basically, if I get below 0, it calls the first person character and it runs that death event, and then everything runs. Then these things are pretty straightforward. They're just key counters and health bars and stuff like that. So it looks something like this. If I run right now, you can see I get up to my pain causing volume. I take damage, game over, restarts, and I'm back to there. If I press key, K for key, I can count my keys, and everything's looking good. So that's where we are. So the next thing is to work with the open level. So the open level was set in such a way that I added a construction script in there so I could put in different objects if I wanted. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not. So if I don't want something there, I'll just set my static mesh to none, and it won't have anything there. But if I don't have anything to go running up to, this gives me something to run up to, so I don't have to create something for it. Of course, I did the set mesh scale, so I can set scales and stuff like that. This was where mostly everything was happening. We were checking to see if we were a character, and then if we were, and we run into this, we go to a new level. And currently, right now, I have no level, so I did make World of Woe again. So I think I spelled it correctly this time. So if I click on this now, I can tell I didn't make it public. So let me make that public so I can actually type it in there. So it's world of. So now if I come in there, if I run there, so like I said, I wasn't able to recreate everything, but so it's just a basic level with nothing in it, right? So I can go to my world of well. Let's open up the world of well real quickly. Save selected. And let's just drop in the same open level. We'll put it right here in the corner so you can see it. Get up on the floor. And this one's first person example map. So now if I come in here, I run into that, it should take me to the first person example map. And there we go. And if I run back into it, should be rolled well. And back to it again. Can take damage. And I can add keys. Okay. So we got a basic setup here. I'm not going to put damage on this side. I'll just leave it. Well, actually, what the heck? Why not put a little damage in there? I'll just put a volume on the other side of that so I can maybe take damage over here. Well, let's put it on this corner because then I'll know it's the opposite corner. Okay. Just save that up and open up first person level to start there. All right. So the main thing that we wanted to get to was the open level. And I called it open level just to change it up a little bit so it seemed a little more, it wasn't quite the same name as the making a new level, because there's that file maybe new level like that. It was a little bit like the name, so I just thought I would change it to open level. So the first thing we need to do is we actually need to make a new object that's going to be called, it's actually called an instance. And so it's an actor, and sorry, I didn't want to do it that way. Let me delete that. Blueprint class, let me actually turn that. I don't know why I did that before. So this is, if you type in instance, you'll get a game instance right here. And then I'm going to select it. Calls itself new blueprint, and what I called it in mine was the game instance. And you want to be you want to make sure you know what the heck this thing is. I think I called mine inst instead of instance, but we need to make sure that we call to this particular one, right? We can't forget that by default the instance, let me save this real quickly, this game instance is a new game instance, and by default there already is an instance created for your game. So you need to be sure to call to this particular game instance, and that's the mistake I always make. So let's just start by doing that right now. And we'll do it at the end to make sure. But it's settings, and we can do project settings. We can get it to it right here, or we can go to edit, project settings, either way. It takes a little time for that to open up. You're looking for maps and modes, and then you're looking for selected game mode. Actually, sorry, you don't need to look here. It's down at the bottom. Right here, game instance, right? So by default, it's already set to game instance, but we have the game instance, and so now we're looking at this one in particular. And so that's a mistake I make almost every single time I do this, is forget to turn that on. And so I'm doing it first this time, just so I don't forget. And you guys might miss that part, so we'll check it one more time at the very end. You just close that. There's nothing to save there. So now it's actually looking at this particular game instance. The only thing that happens in game instances, at least for our level of what we're doing, is just going to be variables, because all we're doing is tracking variables. So we're just going to make variables that match our game mode variables. So I have health amount, max health, keys, and max keys. Do the same thing. So I'm just going to have a new variable. Could have named it over there, but we'll call it health, and then I'm going to put inst at the end there, so it looks a little bit different. I do want to match, this is a float variable, so I want to match the variables that are in the game mode, right? So there's a health amount, and then there's health inst, right? So in the back in the game instance, I'm going to make another one. This is going to be health max inst, like that. And then I have another variable. This is key inst. And I'm not doing amount, and these are actually, these are integers, they're not floats, so one more, and this would be max key inst. So they look really similar, but just notice they have the inst on the back side of all of them, and so let's rename this. Let's not call it max key. Let's call it key max. Just because if you kind of give them the similar names, then you just type in key and health, and it's easier to find everything. Compile and save that, and that's really all you have to do for the game instance. Done. So now in the open level, we need to do something here. So we have if you didn't delete everything, which probably you already did, you probably don't have your event begin play. But remember, if you've deleted that, you can type in begin play, and it's an event, so you can just call to that. Now we have to cast to a couple things, so we're going to want the game mode. It's actually first person. And then we'll need to get the game mode. And then we're going to promote this to a variable. And I've just been naming these, I just say fp underscore gm underscore var, all caps. I find that really easier. That's my new naming method for that. And then we're going to cast to one more time, cast to the game instance, right? And then again, get game instance, and there it is, game instance. So again, this really works well for all the castings, and this is what's expected to happen, right? So this whole setup here is just, again, to kind of streamline the process of dealing with these things. So you don't necessarily need to do it this way, but it's good form, and it cleans things up nicely. So I'm just going to call this, this is the game. I'm just going to call it game. I don't have a good one for this one. Underscore inst underscore var. Like that. And then we have them right here, so we can call to them when we want to. So I just like to do this. I think it cleans things up, and as you start getting to more and more complex things, it's just kind of nice to be able to just drag off these really easily. So just comment that out. I'm not going to necessarily name it, but that's gameplay stuff. Okay. So now we got a bunch of stuff to put between our open level, right? So I'm just gonna disconnect my open level for a moment. Let's put this up here for now. So it's right there. And I'm gonna put this to the side. And Now we're going to do some, we're going to get some variables and we're going to set some variables. So first things we want to do is we're going to go to a new level, we want to get all of our current variables from our game mode. So remember, that's where we're going to start. Okay, so I had to break there for a second. So we're going to do these variables. The first one we're going to grab from the game, the first-person game mode, and we're going to get all of the different things that we have. So we have health. We're going to get the health amount. We're going to with health. We're going to get the max health, and then in this case I also have key. So I'm going to get the keys, and then I'm also going to key, and I'm going to get the max keys. So basically I'm just grabbing the variables that are within the game mode, right? So just basically grabbing these and holding them. And now I'm going to grab the game inst var, right? So remember, these are all coming from up here, right? So basically did cast twos. And you could literally just pop these in there as well, but I think it's nice to have them sort of set off to the side. Like I said, it kind of streamlines everything, so I don't have to have all that sitting here. I just can grab right off here. So remember, these have the same variables, but they're kind of slightly different. They added the inst at the end. So I have health, get health inst. Oops, not get. I don't want to get. I want to set it, right? So health. So I'm going to set the health inst. Health. I'm going to set the max health, and then move those up here so we can see those two, and then I have the key. So I'm going to have key, and I'm going to set the key inst, and then I have key, oops, fix that, and then I have key, and I'm going to set the key max, right? So essentially what happens is I'm going to check to see if I'm player character. If I am, I'm going to run through. It's going to be true. It's going to hit this first set, right? And then these are going to daisy chain across, right? So this set runs to this set. This set runs to this set. This set runs to this set, and that's just the execute. So that just runs these. That's all that's doing. It's just basically remember, sets have to have a execute engaged with them, otherwise they won't set themselves, right? So they'll just sit there. Gets are different. They're passive, right? They just get things, right? So these here, what are they getting? They're getting, what's setting them are the actual settings that they currently are. So my max health is currently set to something, and my health amount is currently set to something. My keys are set to something. My max keys are currently set to something. So when I run through this, this is going to set the instance, right? Var. Okay. This here, this part here, this is gets current var settings. So if I have like 50% health or 25% health, I have 2 keys or whatever, it's just tracking that, right? And then when I go through here, it's going to set all those things, okay? And then when it's done, when this whole thing's done, I'm going to take my open level, I'm going to put that at the end. And then so it's going to do all of that, and then it's going to open the level, just like that. And it looks a little bit different than the blueprints I put in the canvas, but that's essentially the exact same thing. And I had ammo in mine or whatever, and this list could get really quite long. And if it starts getting really long, there's other methods to manage this, right? Then we start getting into the database style storage of variables and stuff like that. And that's a little more complex to deal with. But for a certain amount of these, it's not too hard to manage this. I'm going to say save and compile and save. And that's really all I really need to do with the open level. Pretty set up. So remember the game instance is basically still the same. It's just running these variables. I don't really need to do anything there. First person, for the most part, is set up the way it needs to still. All it's doing is just tracking health and keys, so everything's good there. So what I really need to do is work on the game mode. So in the game mode, we need to get all the information from the game instance. Okay, what is in the game instance? So the game instance opens the first time we open our game, and it always stays open. So it's going to be there always. And so one of the things I realized that I forgot to do is let's take a look at this in the game instance. Currently, my health is set to 100. Or rather, I'm in the game mode right now, and I'm just, this is how we set this up. We had our health. We did 100 was our, and whatever you picked. Keys are 0 because currently I don't have any keys, but my max keys was set to 3, okay? But if you look at my game instance, I didn't set any variables, right? So if I were to enter the game right now, well, right now it'll work fine because my game instance isn't like filling anything right now. So everything's going to work the way we would expect it to, okay? But if I were to set it up where I'm about to, I'd have a problem because my health inst doesn't have a variable set to it. So remember, when the game starts, this thing loads up. And once we set this thing up properly, when we start the game, this is what's actually going to tell the game mode what to have in these variables. So these variables will get overridden by the instance. So even though we have 100 here, it'll get set to 0 because the game instance right now has it at 0. So this is another thing I forget to do often is setting that. So I'm going to set this to 100 because that's my health inst. I set my max to 100 as well. So when they enter the game, these will all be set. My keys are going to be at 0, but my max key will be 3. And that's just what I have it set right now. And remember, when we count, we'll actually get to 4. So just you can either keep track of that, or there's ways to make that make more sense to you with code. So just watch out for that for the game instance, okay? So we do need to think about these instances, or these variables, a little bit because they are going to supersede what's going on in the game mode, okay? So currently right now it wasn't a problem, but now I'm about to add in some new stuff, right? So here now I'm going to do a cast to. So we're going to do a begin play. So an event begin play. So that means when this begins, okay, we're going to cast to the instance. Okay, we're going to get the instance, or we'll get game instance. Okay. And we could do a set variable, and I did that in the example. I don't know if it really whatever. I'll do it again. It matches what I did in the example. In this case, maybe it's a little, you won't necessarily need it, but let's just name it again. So I'm kind of using the same names for these game underscore inst underscore var. Yeah, I could literally totally skip that, not a problem. But here it is. I could have just come straight off there, but just so it looks like the other one. I mean, but just notice I could literally just come off here and do health and get that. Not a problem. Okay. But instead I'm coming off here. I don't know why. Sometimes I do these things and it's like, wait, why did I do that? That's extra, but whatever. And I'm just getting these now. So these are the ones off the inst, right? So now I'm getting these, right? So health, this is the max. And then we have key. We're getting key. And then we're getting the max. Oops. Okay, so now we're getting, and this looks a lot like the open level, right? When you look at the open level, I keep happening, I do that, but it looks real similar, but it's actually kind of the reverse. So in this one, we were getting the from the game bar. In this case, in the game mode, we're getting from the instance. So now we're getting what's in the instance, okay? And we already have the variables sitting here. They're right on the side, right? We've already created them. Health, max, they're all in game mode already. You already created these. You don't have to make new ones. They already exist, right? So all we really need to do is just grab them, right? So I'm going to say set, 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 and set. So essentially just setting these, right? So right now they're already set, right? They're already set, and that works fine. But now that we're introducing the game instance, we need to set them again. So now that's why the game instance has to have variables in them, right? Those variables, right? Because otherwise, when we come to the game mode, why that keeps happening, it's going to reset them. Okay, so I'm going to set this. I'm going to set this, and set this. Okay. And we're going to run it basically the same idea. We're going to just daisy chain these around. So this is going to run through that, that's going to run through this, and this is going to run through that, and that sets them all. This drives it to begin with. So now these all come off here, and begin play happens. And it's going to cast to the game bar, you know, sort of, or rather instance, and we're getting the instance. Like I said, we could have literally just dragged off this one and done it 3 times like that. So that's really honestly an extra step that's probably sort of a waste of time for some of you. And so now everything's set. So it will work exactly the same now. It's going to be identical. Like there's no difference, right? Everything worked the same. And really, I didn't test it so that you could see it not working. So here's, I've got some keys. I'll take a little bit of damage, and then let's go back into, where's the new level? There it is. New level. Keys are still set, and variable is still working. Okay, and if I come back, keys are still set, and not variable, but the health is still working. So let me I'll just disconnect this here, and so you can see the difference. I guess I never did show what happens if this isn't set. So compile and save. Everything should look the same because it still has the original settings, right? So I'll take damage. I'll add a key or two, and then where's that new level? Die before I get to it. Gets a new level, and you can see it sets itself back, because now it's just going back to those defaults that are in the game mode. So each time we go to a new level, the game mode resets itself, right? So the having the instance engaged basically alleviates that, right? So it says, okay, when we first start, it's going to grab what are the defaults. The defaults are set in the game instance. We already set them there, right? As we start to work on things and grab things, like our health changes or we get keys, those things are changing in the game mode. So as we're doing things, the game mode is actually updating here. Right? Things are happening in here. And so you can take on like a new level. These are things that happen. Pass to the game bar, and then tell us the instances to reset themselves to some other thing. Right? So those new numbers are going to supersede. They're going to supersede the new they're going to reset all these. They're going to no longer be their defaults. They'll be whatever they are now. New when we come into new level. It looks to the instance, grabs out all of the current variables and resets all of them in the game mode, so then my everything shows up properly the way I want it to. I can add my keys, take some damage, run back, go in there. Remember, I have some damage right here. This is slower damage. You get about halfway so you can see it. I think I'm going to add one more key, so there's 4. And as you can see, it's still updating, right? So I can take a little more damage, come back, and everything's moving back and forth just fine, and it's keeping all of those variables there. So there we go. That's setting that up. I would encourage you guys to look here. I did set this up a little bit differently. I didn't show you the death. Let me show you death real quick so you can see that run. If I die, it goes through the death, kills everything, loads game over, delays for 4 seconds, and then starts over. So the problem, though, is now, let's see, for instance, so in this situation, if I take some damage, let me add some keys. I'll take some damage. Perfect. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so it's resetting. So whatever I did in my first setup, I wasn't getting a reset, so I added a reset function for when I did a new game. But I set my new game up in a different way. So maybe, like I said, you know, I'm really liking the way I set this up right here to work. It's just so much more straightforward in the way I did it in my class example. This just works really well. I don't have to create any extra variables or anything. I had to go through a lot of back bending to get everything to work properly. Don't think I'm having any trouble, so although my camera's moving, I guess I see camera's still moving, but the keys are going back to 0. I'm still getting my health, right? So the only thing is just the camera. So probably can just grab first-person camera. Let's check that real quick. Basically just destroying components destroying everything that's in there, basically. That's not what we want. So let's take that out. We'll have to figure out something there. Maybe I have a problem there. Yeah, I can't destroy that actually because that's how I'm seeing everything. But we'll have to. Maybe one thing I could do is possess a different camera. It's getting crazy. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But pretty close and looking good. That's not my main thing. My main thing was actually talking about this open level. So I'm going to end it there, and awesome.